D&D and tabletop role-playing games have gone through a sort of popularity renaissance in the past few years, and it's thanks to social media for getting new, bright-eyed adventurers excited for a journey of 1,000 words. It's a wonderful pastime where your imagination meets action-packed scenes, where the only boundary is your own creativity, though sometimes that creativity does get you into trouble. With the experience as a game master for what seems like forever, I've had the unique experience of being the omnipotent eyes, ears, and guiding force to many a story. The role has been and always will be an equally important and at times stressful position, but I've stood witness to my own fair share of crazy happenings. The rise of new heroes, the burning of villages, the slaying of fantastical beasts, the falling of gods from their pantheon. And for every moment of epic proportion, as if the world wanted to maintain equilibrium, I've witnessed adventurers riding elephants off cliffs accidentally, wannabe heroes awaken sleeping elder evil gods, a group of bards convince a ship captain to sail their ship and crew into a typhoon only to be met with failed check after failed check, with advantage mind you. Nothing to show for it but driftwood. Things go wrong, but that's what makes it so much fun. So I thought it'd be nice to take some time and recount all the crazy stories I've been a part of, and take a look through the eyes of the Omnipotent. So there was one day where I had half the normal party size I would run for a session, but it was a West Marches style campaign, so the players could easily jump into missions so long as they were in the immediate vicinity of where the quest was being held. I had drawn up the story to get a few of the players to meet each other for the first time, and explore what possibilities they had with the characters they had just rolled. Their goal was simple. They were looking for clues as to where this dark and spooky obelisk was, with the hopes that they would be able to return to their original dimensions. I forgot to tell you that all the characters were in fact isekai'd into this world one way or another. Anyways, on this quest to look for clues, the party at large was meant to explore different castles in the area, in the hopes that someone somewhere would have any idea as to where this obelisk underground was. This party of 3 consisted of the following characters. The first being Jim, Hangman Gentry, a grizzled cowboy who seemed done with the world. With a rolled cigarette barely hanging on his bottom lip, with 2 pistols and a few sticks of TNT strapped to his belt, he had intentions of being the old, well, here we go again, type character. That was until I had told him that I was throwing him into a high fantasy campaign. But that's not where things started going wrong. The next poor soul was the less experienced Andale. For those watching the screen while listening to my voice, yes, you are seeing exactly how it was written. I'm simply telling you how I was told to pronounce it. Andale was a dark and dreary elf ranger who, as a child, you guessed it, tragically lost both of his parents to a horrible tree falling down on them accident. What is it with players always yeeting their parents out of the story? I'll never understand it fully. And the final soul to join this wonderful quest was the newest to the TTRPG genre. A gallant and battle-ready what looked to be centaur, who hailed from a tribe of warmongering religious zealots. Armed to the teeth with a spear and his faith, he operated under one rule and one rule only. Those who stand in his way are evil. His name? Mobamba. Yep, that was what the player went with. First name Mo, last name Bamba. And even then, that was not where everything started going downhill. The adventure was going fine at first. The characters met, and with a subtle tension and awkwardness among these strangers, they somehow were able to start a conversation on the carriage ride to the Red Tail Citadel. Well, more accurately, Mobamba decided to gallop alongside the carriage and scream at Andale and Jim. They were eyeing the seal on the letter of introduction they were handed by the leader of the previous town, and noticed something was odd about the scroll. They just couldn't really put their finger on. Oh god, bandits are attacking! Take your shoes! Okay, now that the battle is over, hey, where'd the carriage go? Ah yes, the age-old adage. Give the player TNT, expect an explosion. In the midst of the combat with the bandits that they were ambushed by, because they thought they were rolling perception to look at the scroll and not the bandits lying in wait. Oh, I forgot to mention, they failed that, by the way. Their carriage, and the poor soldier driving it, was exploded in the crossfire. Rest in pieces, Nameless Soldier 1. You are the first, and surely not the last. Thankfully, the Citadel is within walking distance with just enough time to make it to the castle gate before the sun is about to set. All was technically going well. The party trekked their way to the Citadel, walking through a flat and quiet grassland plains, sun-kissed by the beginning to set sun. As they get closer, they notice more and more grave markers filling the open plains. They choose not to pay any attention to that at all, as there was a mission to be done, and the adventurers are weary from the walking and the battle. But when they arrive at the Citadel gate, Andale notices from a distance a singular guard standing watch. More so, he was sitting in a chair. Okay, correction, sleeping in the chair. With this information, the party decide to, for some reason, sneak past the sleeping guard. Mind you, they weren't criminals. They were not wanted. They had a letter of introduction and a reason to be there. But alas, they must enter into the city unnoticed, apparently. Jim was the first to advance, easily sneaking over the stone bridge, past the moat, and past the guard with enough speed and stealth that he has enough time to get his grappling hook ready. He tosses the grappling hook into the parapets, tugs the rope snug, and begins his calm ascent up the wall. Now keep in mind, the walls of the Citadel are tall. The adventurers knew the walls were tall. The fearless heroes of this story understood that it would be an ordeal to climb up this wall. Now, to address the elephant in the room. They have a centaur. You know, clip-clop feet and all that. This plan was doomed from the start. Like, even if the hooved centaur is able to sneak... Oh, look, a crit. But still, he'd need to climb the rope. Oh, look, a crit. Well, okay. Maybe this plan is perfect. A silent entry means a silent getaway if everything goes wrong, right? Once Andale gets up the rope... Despite barely passing the sneak, suddenly the entire plan to sneak in is foiled by a 1. While on the rope, Andale's hands begin to slip. The nerves get to him, and he falls off the rope into the moat below. Thankfully, with only a minor injury to show for it. But the sound of the splash, and the scream while falling, wakes the old guard. Now, before we find out what the party does, let's take a moment here first to think about what's going through the players' minds right now. Jim thought that the elf would be the competent one despite using a bow and arrow, but he turned out not to be able to climb a rope. Now he's standing atop the wall with a centaur looking down at a guard who's about to spot his party member. Andale is currently regretting every life choice that he's made to this point, as he is soaked in water and recovering from the shock of the fall. He hears the guard beginning to wake up and realizes that he's in a bad position. Mo is having the time of his life. He just climbed a rope using only his upper body, and you know what? Good on you, Mo. Oh look, a guard! As the guard begins to wake up from his afternoon nap, his head is lined up in the sights of Jim, who has pulled both pistols out, preparing to take a shot. He looks over to the centaur and realizes that this behemoth of a being only has close combat capabilities. So he says, as soon as the elf gets on the rope, start pulling him up. The situation was tense. Every second that the player's waste could lead to an unplanned combat with one of the party members completely separated. It was do or die. Wait, do or die? Why were we fighting again? Anyways, the party members hold their breath as the guard begins moving towards Andale. The elf, in a last-ditch effort to save the situation, dives underwater and attempts to stealth once again. The party silently watched as the dice began to roll. And it's moments like these that I live for. In my mind, I knew that the probability was in the player's favor, but my heart knew that the universe would never make things easy for them. The world cast its die first. The old man, looking for the source of the sound, walks to the edge of the moat and rolled a 12. It was now on Andale, with a +3 to stealth, with a supposed higher than 50% chance of getting away scot-free. He closed his eyes and rolled. Earlier, Andale rolled a 1 for perception. He also rolled a 1 during combat against the bandits. And to get into this disaster, he had rolled a 1 and slipped off the rope. In 6 rolls of existence, Andale had rolled a critical failure 3 times, a 0.2% chance of occurrence in the world. For a 4th failure to be rolled would be an astronomically low 0.00059% chance. But as the Omnipotent, watching the dice cascade from the player's hand and travel across the table, I knew there was only a singular possible outcome. The glorious one! The poor elf in his panic only dunked his head into the moat, and not the rest of his body. He was about to be spotted if it weren't for... A gunshot rang from atop the parapets, landing just inches away from the guard who had turned and looked up. And there he stood, his cape wisping in the wind like the sheriff he once was. Another shot rings out from his second pistol. This time, the bullet flew true. At least that's what the hit dice had looked like. They saw the bullet pass right through the head of the old guard and land on the ground. And for a brief moment, the adventurers had experienced joy. But alas, it's time to tell you a little bit about our sleeping guard. Ulvik Maham was a stocky halfling guard that had protected the gate into the Redtail Citadel. He had held this post from the time he had entered into the town guard as a young halfling till today. For centuries, he would protect the gate from intruders and the like, ensuring that no harm could enter in through the gate. He eventually moved up the hierarchy due to his longer lifespan, outliving all of his predecessors, until one day he was crowned Lord Commander. He maintained his watch despite his rank, until the day he died. He's dead. Well, he's a ghost. And the thing about ghosts, physical material is able to pass through their incorporeal bodies if they're not infused with magic. So about that bullet. Back to the time of the game, and the smoke is fresh off the barrel of Jim's revolver. At first, Ulvik the sleeping guard seems to disapparate into black smoke. So, the adventurers clamor to recover their fallen party member Andale. And by that I mean the centaur Mo heard the order from Jim, and interpreted it as, pick up the elf, and get him up here. Wait! He's just gonna jump! Yeah, he was fine during that part of the ordeal. Let's see what's happening with Jim. Oh god! Jim was fighting for his life. After Mo had jumped down the wall, the old sleeping guard reapparated next to Jim, who began to quickly fire off shots at close range in the hopes that the bullets could deal damage. Now, with Mo Bamba and Andale rejoining Jim atop the wall, the fight became a 3v1. And it was a fierce 3 rounds of combat, until the least likely person came up with an idea. Hey, we have this letter of introduction? And with that, the story progressed like normal. As normal as it could have been, but that's a story for another day. Yes, the constant bad rolls did throw a wrench into every single plan and action the players made, but the important part is to realize that it was their choices that brought them into the trouble they were in. And through equally improbable strokes of luck, they were able to get themselves out of trouble. Did they have to sneak into the city? No. Did they have to start a combat encounter with the town guard? No. Did they know that they were going to have a fight with a ghastly knight that completely outclassed their capabilities? No. But they did all the things they did because the collective story happening in their heads played out in that way. And at times, I still think about how that was the first time those players hung out in real life. Sometimes, the most fun we have in the hobby of playing tabletop role-playing games isn't just playing them. It's remembering the times that we had in adventures past. You might never know what to expect as a game master, but the important part isn't to keep the players on track. It's to make the world feel alive, and give players the ability to have a memorable adventure. Take some time to remember some of those moments that you've made or been a part of. Maybe pick up the dice and try to make more of those moments with your friends. Maybe become the GM yourself and experience the world through the eyes of the Omnipotent.